Today, we're using ChatGPT to do financial ratios analysis on any company's annual report. And if you stick till the end, you'll learn how to leverage ChatGPT to build your own tools with just a little bit of Python code. Hey guys, welcome to another episode. I know that right now custom GPTs are what everyone's talking about, but those are really early stage right now, so they still have a lot of issues, and also require you to be on the paid plan, and it's much cheaper to use the pay-as-you-go API, and building it in Python allows us to have a bit more control of what we want to do and how we want to achieve it. By the way, I recently started a free newsletter about productivity, Excel, business, things like that, so if you want, you can check it out, first link in the description below, and you can always unsubscribe if you don't like it. So once you go to chat.openai.com, you can log in with your Google account, and that's the free version. I also have this income statement for Apple for the last 4 periods, 3 full years, and then trailing 12 months as of, I think this is as of August or something like that. So you can just grab all those, copy them, come to ChatGPT and just say, based on the data below, prepare a financial ratios analysis, show all calculation steps for each ratio, calculate ratios for each period, analyze each ratio, and discuss its development over the provided periods. Reply in valid markdown. I always like to ask ChatGPT to reply in markdown because it's really easy to copy paste it in Word. Reply in valid markdown. What else can we ask it? Okay, I also want to have, like, at the end, append a table with all calculations for each ratio and each period. Here's the data. I'm just gonna paste the data that we copied from there. It doesn't look formatted, but it's formatted enough for ChatGPT to understand what's going on. Press enter and see what happens. Okay, financial ratios analysis. It calculates gross profit margin, shows me the formula for how it's calculated, calculates it for each period, then net profit margin, liquidity ratios. Yeah, so this is something that you probably run into quite a lot. So it would give you ratios that it doesn't have the numbers for. And here it says that current liabilities data is needed to calculate this ratio. And that's a good thing. A few times I've seen it make up numbers, which can be a problem. But yeah, so we have the ratio calculations table. And instead, you only get 2 ratios. The other 4 are things that we cannot calculate. So there's some small analysis, but it's not enough, in my opinion. So let's go ahead and amend our prompt here at the top. So we'll say financial ratios analysis. Starting with please. I'm so used to starting with please. Only calculate ratios for income statement. Do not include ratios that you don't have the data to calculate. Calculation steps, analyze each ratio and discuss its development over the provided periods. Provide detailed analysis of the performance of the company. And I'm also going to say based on the data below for Apple's income statements, and let's see if that's enough. So most often it just comes to like figuring out how to adjust the prompt, maybe rerunning it a few times, things like that. Again, analysis is pretty short, but it's actually to the point. The gross profit margin has been consistently improving, indicating effective cost management and increased profitability. Okay, that's good. Interest coverage ratio. Okay, we have the data for that. So I'm not sure where it got the average outstanding shares. Yeah, we have the shares here. So it could calculate the earnings per share and Okay, so that's a pretty good start. And we also have a table here at the bottom and all the calculations in it. That's already a pretty decent job. And what you can do from here on out is you can dig deeper into some of the specifics. So for example, we might say something like, based on the gross profit margin calculation above, discuss in detail the performance of Apple over the period for which data is available. And it's gonna spit out some additional analysis and some observation about effective cost management, things like that. It's really robust, and you can pretty much dive deep into each of the ratios up here. The most important thing to remember is that it's not always spot on with the numbers. So once in a while, maybe like 10% of the time, 15, maybe even 20, if it's a more like advanced use case, it would hallucinate some numbers. So it's important to, after that, go in and just check that everything tracks. And I know it sounds almost like recreating the whole analysis in Excel, for example, but you still might want to do it. First, you'll be able to validate what ChatGPT did. Second, you can prepare some charts and visuals for this analysis. But at the very least, it gives you a great direction on which points to focus on and what to analyze. As you can see, it's really simple to grab a company's financial statements and leverage the free version of ChatGPT to generate robust, full-blown financial ratio analysis. Now let's dip our toes in a little bit of Python and the Streamlit library and see how we can leverage OpenAI's pay-as-you-go API to build our own custom tools to serve our specific purposes. For the next part, first you want to go and download Python. If you don't have it, I'm not going to go into detail how to set it up. Just go to python.org/downloads, download Python, install it. Make sure, especially on Windows, when you're installing it, there's a checkbox that asks you to add it to your path, and you should do that in order for it to work properly. Once you're done installing it, you can open command prompt, just type in Python, and you'll get your version, and that way you can be sure that you have it installed and everything's set up. There are numerous Python development IDEs. You can use Visual Studio Code, but what I like to use is called PyCharm, and there's a free community edition that you can download. You register on their site and you download it. So let's go ahead and create a new project. And we're gonna do a new environment using virtual env. So we wanna have a virtual environment. So everything that we need for this project will be stored in this environment. Not only the short code that we're gonna write, but also every dependency, every library that we're using. And don't worry if that doesn't make too much sense. You can always go online, watch a few tutorials on Python, but for the purposes of this video, we're gonna create something really simple, but really powerful at the same time. So just gonna name it FPA analysis, and I'm just gonna leave everything as is, hit create, and we have our project. So the first thing we wanna do here is we need to install some dependencies. And the first one is Streamlit. Streamlit is a Python library that allows you to create web interfaces to interact with your application really easily. So it's really good for prototyping different data science applications. And financial analysis, it's kind of a data science application. So Streamlit is a great fit for our project. So I'm gonna write a command in the terminal, pip install. Pip is the package manager for Python, and we can install various packages with the pip install command. And I'm gonna say Streamlit. I'm gonna let this install. It will install all kinds of dependencies that it needs. One of the more important dependencies that it's gonna install is Pandas, and Pandas is a data processing app. So it works with frames, which are similar to tables, but it's one of the best libraries to manipulate data. Let's just give it a few minutes to install all those collected packages. Next, we're going to go to this URL, github.com/OpenAI/OpenAI Python. So this is the Python library from OpenAI that we'll be using. You can see here how to install it, and there's a lot of details on how to use it. The same thing with Streamlit. If you go to streamlit.io, the website, you can see various things, and you can also look at their documentation where you can see everything that you can do with it. So I'm just gonna copy that, go back to PyCharm, paste it, pip install OpenAI, enter, wait for it to install. As we'll be using our OpenAI API key that I'm going to show you how to get in a minute, we want to install python.env. So this will allow us to store our API key in a separate file as an environment. So if we share our code, we don't have to share this file, and our API key is not within our main code. Python-.env. And since we want to be able to work with Excel spreadsheets, build XLSX files, we're also going to install OpenPyXL. Now that we have our dependencies installed, we're going to go to platform.openai.com. I'm going to hit login. You can sign up if you don't have an account or use Google, Microsoft, Apple. Once I log in, I'll go to API keys. Here I have all my API keys. I'm going to create a new API key. Say it FPA analysis, create secret key, and make sure to copy that before you close, because once you click done, you cannot go back and copy it. You have to create a new key. Then back in PyCharm, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to name it .env to store our environment variables. And I'm going to say OpenAI API key equals, I'm going to put in my API key here, and actually going to put it in single quotations, and then OpenAI org, and this is your organization ID. Now we can hit done here since we copied our key. And if we go to our settings organization, we can grab our organization ID, copy this one here, and we are done with this file. Let's go back up, and I'm also going to create a new file, call that main.py from Python, and here we'll be building our tool. So first thing we're going to do is you want to import Streamlit as ST. I like to shorthand it. We're going to import pandas as PD. We're going to import OpenAI. We're going to import OS. And the OS library allows us to easily use the getenv function to pass the API key from our .env config file to OpenAI. We're also going to import time, so we can use time calculations. And from .env, we're going to import load.env. This will also help us to load our .env file and use the OS library to pass the API key to OpenAI. So the first thing we want to do is load our .env variables. I'm just going to call load.env. That will take care of it. Then we can start configuring OpenAI config, and you see I use the pound sign. This is to write a comment, and I suggest you always comment everything that you do, so it will be easier to figure out what you were doing if you go into the file like later on. So we need to set a few settings for OpenAI. The first thing is our organization, and we're going to say OS get env, and here in quotations, I'm going to say OpenAI org, which is the name that we gave to our organization ID here. Then we also want to set the API key. So API underscore key equals OS get env, and the variable is OpenAI API key. Just make sure that's exactly how we named it. Yes. So that was our setup for OpenAI. Now we can create requests to OpenAI and use ChatGPT or GPT-4 if you have access to that to generate different completions. So next thing is let's set up our Streamlit page. So this is the configuration of our page that will be running through Python in our web browser. So we're going to reference to ST, which is our shorthand for Streamlit, set page config. And I'm just going to pass a title, AI FP&A Assistant, and I'm going to pass in one emoji, which is going to be our icon. Just going to say cookie emoji, and you can go in and pick whatever you want here. So next thing, let's build the Streamlit sidebar. So this is our menu that's going to be on the side. That's where our menu will live. So we're going to say ST for Streamlit sidebar title. So this is pretty much how Streamlit works. So you have your main instance where you add different components and they are rendered one below the other. And you also have your sidebar within your Streamlit main component, and this adds items to the side in your menu. So we're adding a title. I'm gonna call it system. And this is because for OpenAI, when you're using it through the API, you can provide two things. So one is the system, which explains how the AI should present itself pretty much, whether it's an assistant or an alter or something like that. And then you also have your user message, which is the request that you're passing. And here we'll also add system text area. So this is the name of our variable, and we are adding it as a variable so that we can then reference it later on. So this is going to be equal to, and here we're going to create it. ST sidebar, we want a text area, and we want to say that this is system description is our label. And we're going to give it a height of 200 and max chars of 500. You can see here that you get all the different options when you hover over this. So you have all the different options that you can use, but this is pretty much enough for our purposes. So the next setting we want to have in our sidebar is being able to adjust two things. One is temperature, which is pretty much how creative the AI will be, and the max tokens that we want to spend on this request. So the more tokens you use, the more you get charged. So for this, let's reference our Streamlit sidebar and add a subheader. I'm going to call it settings, and you can use single or double quotation marks pretty much interchangeably in most places. And then we'll create a new variable, temperature slider. So again, I'm not just adding it as here, but I'm creating it as a variable as up here so I can reference its value later on. And this is going to be Streamlit sidebar slider. And this slider, I'm going to give it a label of temperature. And then I'm going to give it a few more options. And if I tail over it, you see that I start with label, then I have min value, max value, the current value, and the step at which it changes. So the min value is going to be 0, and I'm going to say 0.0 because I want it to be with one digit after the decimal point. And my max value, I'm going to put it at 1, but if you're certain that you'll be using the newer models, you can put it at 2 because for the older GPT models, the temperature is between 0 and 1, but let's say for ChatGPT is between 0 and 2. I usually never go above 1 anyway because it gets too creative for our purposes, analyzing financial data. Then I'm actually going to leave the current value at 0 because that's the least creative that it can get. I'm going to say that the step is 1, so I can increment it so I can change it at increments of 1. I'm also going to provide a format just to make sure that I see this single digit after the decimal point. I'm going to say %.1f. That's the formatting that we need to be able to see one digit after the decimal point. And then I'm going to add another slider for our max token slider. And it's going to be ST sidebar slider. And this is going to be max tokens. Minimum will be 0. I'm going to set the maximum at 248. You can go 4096, or with the 16K model, you can go up higher, but this is pretty much enough for our purposes. And because this is a multiple of 256, our current value, I want to say 256 times 5, which is somewhat in the middle, a bit above the middle. And I'm going to say that my increment step is going to be 256. So to test this out, you just save it. we go back to the terminal and we can say Streamlit run main.py. If you press tab as you're typing it in, it's going to show up. And it's opened in our browser. You see here that we have system for the system description. We have a slider for the temperature from 0 to 1. And we have our max tokens that we can drag around with increments of 256. Okay, now let's build our main area. So build Streamlit main area. So first, you're going to create a status bar, which is going to be an empty place at the top where we can show messages. I'm going to say status bar as a variable equals to st.empty. And the idea here is that I'm creating an empty element at the top of my page. Remember that the way things are rendered on the page with Streamlit is whatever you write first appears first, and that's how it gets stuck. So I want to have this empty placeholder at the top. So I'm creating it here. Then I'm going to say st.title. I want to have a title, and my title is going to be import data. And now we'll create a file upload field. So we're going to say upload file. This is going to be our variable, which would store the file once we upload it. And it's going to be st, no sidebar anymore because we're in the main page, just in st in Streamlit. And I'm going to create a file uploader because it has so many different settings. Instead of just following and typing each one consequentially, I'm just going to say label equals upload data file. And then I'm going to say type equals, and in square brackets, I can just say XLSX. And this is going to be the only type of file that we're going to be accepting. You can list different files here, say CSV, things like that, but let's just stick with Excel for now. And then I want to check if it's nothing and if it's uploaded. So the way Streamlit works is every time you perform an action, it runs from the top. So if we upload a file, it's going to re-render the whole thing. And as it comes to here, I want to check if this file exists. So I'm going to say if upload file is not none. So if it's not nothing, and notice here how this is indented. That's how Python works. So everything that's indented will be underneath this if statement. As soon as we go back in terms of indentation, it will move back to be outside of the if statement. And if this is not none, we're going to create a data frame. So data frames is what Pandas uses to manipulate data. So I'm going to say pd.readExcel. And I'm just going to pass the upload file. So this is going to read the Excel file and create a data frame from it, which we can manipulate further down. So once we have the data frame, just going to list it like that. And what Streamlit would do is it's going to portray it as a nicely formatted table. And then I'm going to say I want to convert it to JSON because I want to pass JSON to OpenAI. It's a neat format that ChatGPT can understand. I'm going to say data frame. And I'm going to use the toJSON function, which is within Pandas. And that's it. And if I have an uploaded file, I also want to show this JSON just to make sure that everything is working. I'm going to say st subheader, just going to say JSON. And after that, I want to show the JSON file as a code block. So I'm going to use streamlit.code, and I'm going to pass data frame JSON. So this is how our file loading would work. Let's go ahead and see if that works. So right now, our server is still running. So if I switch back here, you see here rerun, and you can toggle always rerun, which is going to rerun it with every save that you do. And I don't like that because I'm not that fast with making changes, so I prefer to run it manually. And you see here that we got this drag and drop files here, or browse files. I'm just going to drop our Apple income statement, the file that we used before, and you see that it converted it to a data frame. Don't worry, it didn't recognize the titles or anything, but the important part here is that we can easily convert this to JSON, and we'll be using this JSON to ask our questions to ChatGPT. Okay, so now that we have the file, let's go down and set up our prompt. So I want to add a title. I'm going to say prompt, and then we need a message text area, which is going to be again a variable that we want to use. It's going to be streamlit.text area, similarly to what we did within the sidebar. We're going to say that the label is user message. So this is our question. And we're going to pass an empty parameter, which is for the value. So I don't want it to have any value at the beginning. Then we're going to pass the height, 200. Then we have the max chars. And I know it's not the same as the tokens, but it's pretty similar. So I'm just going to pass in max token slider. So the value of our slider is going to be the maximum amount of characters that we can type in our user message. Next thing we're going to pass is the key. It's going to be stored in some form of like persistent storage for this specific run of our application, so we can reference it easier. We're going to call it message. And I don't want to see the label actually, so I'm going to give it the label visibility equal to hidden. So this is going to hide the label itself. And then we need a button to run our prompt. So we're going to create a run prompt button as a variable equals to st.button, and we're going to call it run prompt. And the last thing we need is we're going to create another empty container. So we're going to call it response container. So this is where we'll put in the response that ChatGPT will give us, and it's just going to be a container. So now we need to add our actions. We want to check if we clicked this button. So remember, it runs from top to bottom. So as it's past the button, if we press it, it's going to check here, and we can just say if run prompt button. So if it was clicked, we're going to create a loading animation. So a spinner. I'm going to say with st.spinner. I'm going to say fetching the cookies. So we're saying with this spinner, we want to do different things. So we want to do things while the spinner is active, while it's loading. So we're going to nest everything underneath the spinner. And here we're going to create a completion using OpenAI. So it's going to be OpenAI dot, going to create a chat completion and dot create. Our model is going to be GPT 3.5 Turbo. And you can look up the different codes for different models. You can go to the playground on OpenAI's website once you already have your account, and you can see all the different models that you have access to there. And then we're going to be providing messages. So this is going to be an array of messages. And the first one in curly brackets is going to be role system. So this is our system where we set up the instructions for how our AI instance should behave. This is going to be our system text area, the value that was there. And I forgot here that we also need content here. So we're providing the role system, and the content is the content of system text area. So then you can just copy that, paste it 2 more times, and remove the comma here at the end. So the next message will be role user. And the next one, again, will be role user. And the first content that we're going to pass is going to be our data frame JSON. And the second thing will be our message text area. So we're passing our system instructions. We're passing our JSON that we created from our Excel file. And we're also passing the message text area where we have asked our question. The next thing we need to pass is the temperature, which is going to equal our temperature slider. And the next thing is max tokens, which is going to equal our max token slider. So we're not building any like chat functionality where we ask questions, get the response, ask another question, things like that. So that makes it much easier for us because we can just grab the first result that OpenAI gives back. So right under here, after our completion, within the spinner, you're going to say result equals completion dot choices. I'm going to grab the first choice, which is 0. So items start from the index of 0. Messages, and you're going to grab content of the messages. It's message content. So from our first choice, you want to grab the message, and you want to grab the content of the message. And here we're going to do another if. So if result is different than nothing, so if we got a response, then we want to say response container dot write. So this is a function that allows us to write within another component. We're going to write the result there. Then we're going to write also, but using code, we're going to code the completion to make sure that we have the whole thing. And we also do a fun thing. So Streamlit has those like fun little things like ST balloons, who just pop balloons over the screen whenever our thing is done. And now we're going to use the status bar that we created earlier, the empty at the top. And we're going to say status bar.success. And success is a notification that's like a green and indicates success. And we're going to say operation was successful. And for our icon, we're going to give it just a smiley face. And here we're going to say else. So if result is nothing, you're going to say status bar dot error. You're going to add an error at the top. You're going to say that didn't work, try again. And we're going to pass for icon a sad face. We're going to go back online and I'm going to say time.sleep. So remember we imported time. I want to sleep for 3 seconds before I make the status bar empty once again. But right now this will be within the spinner, so it's going to be delaying the whole loading here, and I don't want to do that. So I'm actually going to move it up one more indentation out, so it's at the same place with the spinner, so it happens afterwards, everything that's happening within the loading spinner. And that's it, 72 lines of code. Just to recap really quickly, we're setting up our OpenAI. We are building our sidebar where we can provide system description, settings. We're setting up our upload file where we can drop in Excel files. We convert that to JSON so we can pass it easily to OpenAI. Then we have our prompt and a button. And if we click the button, then we spin up a loading spinner and we create our completion based off of our system description, our JSON data, and our message, our question, with the temperature and the max tokens. And if we get a result, we write it in the response container, we pop some balloons, and we show a green success notification. Otherwise, we show an error, and we hide this status message after 3 seconds with the time.sleep function. So if we didn't make any mistakes, if we click rerun, you see that now we have our prompt here, and since we already have the file attached, we can directly go in and ask questions. If you refresh the page, you have to drop in the file again. So for system description, I'm going to bring in this text. You're a financial analysis AI that helps users by calculating ratios and evaluating trends with financial data provided in JSON format. So I'm letting it know that data is going to be coming in JSON format. You always reply in HTML because I want it to be formatted nicely. Your calculations are always factually correct, and you explain how each calculated property was derived by showing tables, charts, and formulas as needed. Always include a summary table of all calculations performed at the end of the response. And if this is something that works for you, you can even go in and add it as a default text. So you can come in here and where we prepared our system description, we can give it a value. See, the second one is a value. So we can say here, this, and save it, go back. That way, even if we refresh the page, we'll still get the system here, and we can adjust it on a case-by-case basis. Now we lost our file. We're going to drop it here again. It's loaded, everything's working. And now it's time to ask some questions. I'm going to say, analyze the provided income statement, calculate relevant ratios, and draw valuable insights. Calculate only ratios you have the data for. Do not include ratios that require additional data. As you saw with our ChatGPT example, this is a really important thing because ChatGPT likes to show off that it knows about other ratios, even though there's no way for you to calculate them based only on the data that we're providing. Present the relevant calculations in Markdown table format. Use headings as needed. So this is a bit controversial. Here we set HTML. Here we say Markdown, but let's see what happens. So you see here that we actually get an error because they updated the OpenAI code base. And this happens from time to time. I purposefully left it in, so I want to show you how easy it is to figure out what you need to change. Just gonna copy this here. See the README at, go down here and see usage. So the usage just gotten way easier to do it. So you see that API key defaults to OS environment get OpenAI API key, so we don't need the underscore here, but we can just grab this and come to our code, and here where we're setting OpenAI, we're just gonna copy those three pieces in the three places where we're using it, and it's gonna be really easy to fix it. So I'm gonna say OpenAI, import OpenAI. Then we're gonna create our client. So here, I don't need those two anymore. We're gonna say this, and actually don't need those as well. So we can just create OpenAI and let it default to the OpenAI API key. And the only thing we need to do here is change our variable name here. So I'm just gonna, for consistency, change it in both our environmental variables. Okay, so now we have our client. And the only thing we need to do now is to change our completion. So down here where we have completion equals, just gonna copy it above that, and I'm gonna grab my messages from here, cut those, and paste them over this one. I'm gonna leave the model the same, and I wanna pass the temperature and the max tokens. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the same format for those. So just temperature and max tokens. I don't need this completion anymore. And now I can go in and just change this to completion lowercase, and here again, completion lowercase. And let's see if that fixed it. So I'm gonna rerun. We have everything here. I'm gonna run prompt, and you see that now we have fetching the cookies. And I left that because I used this older version of the code for an ebook that I wrote back in the day. And I just wanted to show you that those changes happen, especially with like fast growing companies. And we got another error, chat completion message object is not subscriptable on line 61. And I'm just showing you those so that you don't get scared when you get these errors. Usually it's really simple to fix, especially in such a simple use case. So if we go back to our code, you're gonna see that line 61 is where we're getting the result. And maybe since they changed the way we're asking the API, we should redo this just to make sure that we're getting the right thing. So I'm gonna start with our completion dot. Then you see that we still have choices. I'm gonna grab the first choice, and let's see what we have in here, message. And before we had it like that, which is subscripting it, but if I just hit dot, you see that now content is just that way. We don't have to subscript it. You can just grab it like that. And now if we go back and we run our prompt again, fetching the cookies, and here are balloons. And here we have our income statement analysis. We'll calculate the following ratios. Let's calculate these ratios and draw insights from the data. Then it goes in, it calculates everything, and it gives you tables. And we see here that we have some issue with Streamlit, with the icons. So those are not allowed. Let's see if we can do it like that. So this is gonna be our success icon. And here we're gonna have this one here, and this should work. So let's just rerun. We have everything here. Let's run the prompt again and see if this works. Okay, we got our balloons, everything works. We have our chat completion at the end, and we probably missed our status up top. But that's it. That's how you can pretty easily create your own simple tools. And keep in mind, this can be about anything. So you can be dropping a document and then asking it to summarize it, or asking it to provide a continuation of a story that you're pasting in, things like that. So you can really start using a little bit of Python code, and you can even go in and learn more about Python, but it's really easy to get you started to where you have some nice internal tools for yourself or for your company, where you can be running this on a computer with Streamlit run and just leave it on, and your colleagues or friends or family, whoever has access to the network this is running on, can use it to do different things with AI. One thing I'm gonna suggest is go to your limits tab here and make sure that you have some like really low monthly budgets and an email notification threshold as well, just to make sure that if you mess up something and let's say you end up running a loop that asks OpenAI something all the time and you didn't notice it, you won't rack up a huge bill. Okay, this video got pretty long, but I really think it was worth it. I hope you got as much value and had as much fun as I had recording it. As you can see, with just a little bit of setup, we gain much more control over how ChatGPT or GPT-4 performs in analyzing the data that we provide. That's all I have for you today. I hope you found this video useful. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and maybe even punch the bell icon to receive notifications every time I upload a new video. Till then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and before you go, check out this video about how to build your own automations in make.com, and here's a video that YouTube thinks will be a good fit for you. See you next time.